Most of us are now feeling the effect of climate change. There is forest fires, drought, and whether in Africa or Europe, everywhere is hotting up, which means our weekly environment show is now more important than ever. Welcome to EcoAfrica from Ogun State, Nigeria. I am Chris Ilems.
A warm welcome from me too. I am Sandra Twinoblio and I'm here in Kampala, Uganda. Well, drought and how people cope with it is only one aspect we're looking at in this week's show. Also on the program, reviving an ancient irrigation method in Tunisia. We show you how to better maintain the increasing number of wind turbines in Europe's waters. And saving the giraffe, how Namibia is protecting the world's tallest land animal. Today we start our show in Europe, where persistently hot temperatures have been causing major problems, including forest fires, crop failure and heat-related deaths. The World Wildlife Fund says its calculations show by 2050 the number of people facing extreme water shortages in Europe will have risen by 50%. Farmers are especially feeling it right now. Most farming areas are at less than half their regular water capacities. So do we really have options for countering the water shortage?
This plant is still something of a rarity on German farms, the chickpea. It's more commonly cultivated in the drier regions of southern Europe. These scientists have planted the legume here on a small organic farm to test it under these conditions. Chickpeas grow well in the chalky, sandy loam soil found in the Uckermark, a region in northeastern Germany.
This year we had severe drought once again and the crop developed really well. Here in this location it demonstrated a high tolerance for drought, and that will be very important in the future.
Here in one of the country's driest regions, the researchers are testing 5 different types of chickpea. And they're also collaborating with local organic farmers. The most productive chickpea plants could boost their income. Up to now, chickpeas have mainly been imported, and demand for them is rising.
One very decisive factor will be the extent to which we manage to create landscapes that retain water effectively, particularly in agriculture. And it's not enough to just switch to new crops, like chickpeas.
Water shortages are not just affecting farming. Groundwater levels have fallen throughout Germany. The amount of water currently lacking is a whole year's worth of rain, say climate researchers.
There's little coming from above to replenish the large amounts of water evaporating from rivers, lakes and marshland. Less rainfall, higher temperatures and more evaporation means that we're facing critical situations more frequently.
Saving water would be one of the first steps to take. But people are still filling their private pools or watering their gardens liberally, further depleting groundwater resources. Strausberg-Erkner, a suburb of Berlin where a lot of new houses have pools, is one of the few municipalities in the region to take action. From now onwards, anyone using more than the average of 105 cubic litres per day will have to pay a fine, and new construction has been put on hold. But water shortages are probably here to stay. Climate researchers estimate that the state of Brandenburg will have to make do with 20% less water by 2045. There's already a low water management plan, but that won't be sufficient.
Because of water loss due to rising temperatures and subsequent evaporation, we decided that we would take legal steps to establish an official water reserve.
The plan is to set aside 20% of available water as a precaution, meaning the local waterworks and citizens would have less water at their disposal. The German capital has its own experience of managing limited amounts of water. Berlin's drinking water supplies come from groundwater, which is largely fed by nearby lakes and rivers, but it's not enough. The city has been boosting groundwater levels for a long time now. Pre-purified water from 2 rivers is pumped into ponds, which then seeps down into the groundwater. That provides around 10% more drinking water, and that's all recycled too.
On a warm summer's day, we use about 750,000 cubic meters a day, and at the same time we put the same amount of wastewater back into the system. You can see that more or less balances out. With that kind of circular usage, then the quantity should be adequate in dry years too.
But if levels continue to drop, then there may be less water in circulation. The water companies are calling on the city to provide more spaces that are able to absorb rainwater, rather than the ever more impermeable surfaces. Keeping water in the soil, that's an important aspect of organic farming. Jörg Juster had a good lupin harvest this year. It's a crop that can cope with modest rainfall. Preparation of the soil also plays an important role. After the harvest, it's only lightly tilled, and then cow manure is spread on top to create humus.
We have a certain amount of water available for the year. All the work we do on the fields has to be adapted to that. So we try to work the soil as lightly as possible, so we don't aerate too much soil, because then the water simply evaporates.
The cultivation of these protein-rich legumes is profitable because the crop can be turned into flour or used in vegan products. Jörg Juster is looking for other alternatives for the future. So perhaps along with white lupins, chickpeas will soon be harvested here too.
Well, staying on the subject of water scarcity, we now head to Tunisia in northern Africa. Here, farmers use up to 80% of all water used in the country, so they really need to change their behavior moving forward. Sometimes it is enough to take advantage of the old traditions. So take a look at this week's Doing Your Bit.
Olive trees are hardy plants that do well in arid regions, up to a point. In the past, there used to be adequate rainfall here in northern Tunisia, but due to climate change, it's become a lot drier. And now farmer Mohammed Ben Ismail transports water to the orchards from a well that is far away, water that's becoming increasingly scarce. So he's filling olas, clay pots that he's buried in the ground. The unglazed vessels have porous walls and are quite large. If the soil dries out, the pots act as a reserve to keep the roots well supplied. The trees just get the right amount of water.
This method's better than direct watering because when you pour water onto the ground, the water around the tree evaporates.
And better still, this ancient method does the job using around 60% less water. Chemist and olive tree expert Iman Queslati is carrying out tests on trees here in Ben Ismail's orchard.
When the weather is humid or when it rains, no water seeps out of the vessels. When it's dry and the trees need water, their roots can absorb it directly from the supply in the buried pots.
And there's another advantage. These trees produce around 20% more olives, despite less water being used. The Ola method dispenses water much more efficiently.
And how about you? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
The Rwenzori Mountains are Africa's largest mountain range, also known as the Mountains of the Moon. They straddle the border between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. They are a popular destination for climbers and wildlife tourism.
Absolutely, and it's one of the most beautiful places in your country, Sandra. But sadly, here too, climate change is having an impact, and the famed glaciers are melting. Forest could help to slow the process in the area. One man in Uganda has used his own money to do just that. Here is our eco-hero of the week.
Nature's chorus. It is the sweet reward for nurturing and protecting this small forest and allowing it to flourish.
I've got a pattern with animals and birds and the ecosystem, we must say. It's amazing because the tranquility. You can have your peace of mind here. You can meditate. Unlike that noise in the cities.
Tom Boijana's family once grew crops on this land, but decades ago, the former hotel manager dedicated 5 acres of it solely for trees.
I've been to Europe and other these places and whatnot, Switzerland, Geneva, Zurich, Paris, and all these places. These people have got the green trees and whatever it is in their cities. And I don't see why we can't at least take some of those things and do it the same in our, replicate them in our cities.
The small wooded area is close to the center of Fort Portal in western Uganda. Often referred to as the Garden City, Fort Portal is a gateway to numerous national parks and safaris, but its popularity is both a blessing and a curse. This city of 50,000 inhabitants is expanding and has taken a toll on the local nature.
We used to have trees in town and this and that. Those trees are no longer there. Even we used to have wetlands conserved, but that's not the case anywhere.
This is a worrying trend for the environmentalist. Fort Portal is surrounded by a number of precocious natural sites, including Kibale National Park, which is protected population of wild chimpanzees, and Queen Elizabeth National Park, home to great herds of elephants. And on the horizon, the Rwenzori Mountains, Africa's third largest mountain range. Here, just as elsewhere around the globe, the glaciers at 5,000 meters are melting due to human-driven global warming. The fresh water that flows through the river of Fort Portal comes from here. It's another part of the fragile ecosystem that Mboijana wants to see protected.
That river, the literally know, passes behind the Rwenzori Mountains and enters Lake Albert as the Semliki River. And it goes through Lake Albert, comes out as the Albert Nile, and joins the other area, what you call the River Nile. And off it goes to Suez Canal. So that's the linkage, really.
The eco-activist is so passionate about the environment, he's even willing to fight for it in court. Mboijana celebrated success at the Fort Portal courthouse after suing a road construction company for polluting the air.
I won the case. That's when the whole country knew that even that Article 39 exists, whereby every citizen is entitled to a clean and healthy environment. From then, now these fellows cannot do a road in any community without spraying it with the water pumps, whatever it is, on the road, so that the manam becomes wet and doesn't have to emit that dust.
But what happens to Mboijana's little paradise when he is no longer around? He is rejected an offer of millions from tourism group. Trustees are to ensure that the forest remains as it is, even after his death.
When he passes away in the future, people coming after me don't destroy what I've nurtured for all these years, or what my grandmother, who came here in 1930, left that legacy. My mother followed it. I've done it, and I want even the future generation to do the same.
Over the last 3 decades, Uganda has lost more than half of its natural forest to encroachment. According to this conservationist, that alone should be enough incentive for the next generation to follow his example.
Now let's move to Europe. The governments there are searching for new sources of energy, and not just because of the energy crisis caused by war in Ukraine. So they switch to renewables. More and more big wind farms are being planned and constructed in the North Sea. The problem is they also need regular maintenance. Scientists from the UK want to help facilitate that task in the future.
Offshore wind turbines. They produce a lot of electricity, but maintaining them is complex and costly. This tank at a Scottish university can simulate conditions at sea. The scientists here are testing a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, designed to make the upkeep of offshore wind farms safer and cheaper. If successful, the device could revolutionise the offshore wind industry.
You have to imagine that in 10, 15 years' time there'll be hundreds of wind farms, which means thousands of wind turbines all across the coast of the UK. You also have some maybe new hydrogen technologies being developed, and all of this will need to be maintained, inspected and serviced. At the moment using large ships with lots of crew, and this is not scalable.
There are currently around 5,500 offshore wind turbines in Europe alone. Like Britain, many countries on the North and Baltic Seas want to expand their offshore production in the coming years. Wind turbines are becoming bigger and bigger. Most of the heavy steel structures are anchored to the seabed in deep water, far off the coast. That puts them under a lot of strain, so the supports must be checked regularly for signs of damage.
A typical mission would be to send the vehicle down, typically in the North Sea 40, 50 meters, rarely more, but in other parts of the world you're talking of hundreds of meters, and you need to equip the system with some autonomy. So the system has a set of cameras here, a sonar system, acoustic system to image, lights and a robotic arm.
Most maintenance work on wind turbines is done by industrial divers, but it's tough work and very expensive, not to mention extremely dangerous. In future, many tasks could be performed by ROVs.
Typically you would have corrosion on the system. You might have to turn a valve, you might have to connect a cable, you might have to change an anode, clean the surface if it's too much biofouling, etc. So there's lots and lots of use cases.
For now, the robot is still connected to land by cable. Later it will be able to operate fully autonomously in the sea, or if necessary, be controlled by a drone pilot.
The system will work for inspection of anything that you can find under the water, for pipelines, for seabed, for shipwrecks, anything that you would like to explore, anything that you would like to 3D model.
Tests are still being conducted in the lab for now. But last spring, the underwater drone had its first field deployment at an offshore wind farm off the northeast of England. It successfully recorded videos that allowed researchers to assess the exterior condition of foundations and cables.
We end up our show in Namibia. For more than 5 years now, giraffes are on the red list of species threatened with extinction. Once common across the continent, there are less than 100,000 of them left.
Whoa, what a shame, but there is hope. We went to the country in the very southwest of Africa, where scientists from an NGO have been studying giraffe populations very closely, and they now say there are reasons to be cautiously optimistic.
Most people are familiar with giraffes, but far less is known about them than many realize. What's certain is that they are the world's tallest land animals, which enables them to reach leaves high on trees in the African savanna. What's lesser known is that giraffes are incredibly fast. In short bursts, they can run up to 60 kilometers an hour. Beyond that, there are still many unanswered questions about them. What are the different species? How many giraffes currently live in the wild? In Namibia, biologists Lachlan McPheeters and Jody Mitchell-Moore want to learn more. They photograph every giraffe they see so they can be identified later.
Another adult female, right 8573.
Observational studies like these have concluded that there are currently only 117,000 giraffes in Africa. By comparison, there are nearly 4 times as many elephants.
If you think about something like an African elephant, they're in the around that 400,000 mark, I believe, individuals. So if you think that compared to 117,000 individuals, it's pretty incredible for such a large browser species that is kind of one of the most iconic species in Africa, really.
There's been very little work done on them. I suppose the priority in the past has been some of the more sexier species like elephant and lion, and giraffe have sort of gone under the radar. And I think because they are quite widespread throughout Africa, you feel like you see them everywhere.
But that is deceptive. Climate change and humans clearing land for settlements and agriculture has led to a substantial loss of habitat for giraffes. In the past 30 years, the population of these graceful animals has sunk by about a third. Waste in rivers also threatens their drinking water. When tourist numbers dropped due to the COVID pandemic, these guides started picking up the trash instead, which will benefit the giraffes in the long term. Protecting these animals has a long history in Namibia.
If I can tell you more a little bit about the Bushmen, they were not killing giraffe at all. Even during their hunting activities, they were not targeting giraffes because they thought it was the tallest animal, and they realized that killing a giraffe, you are cutting communication between yourself and the ancestors.
This was once considered a sacred sport. 3,000-year-old cave drawings prove how important giraffes were to the people living here. They were regarded as bringers of life.
They believe in the giraffe that they might extend their neck and touch the clouds and make it rain. So good rain is a good happy year for them.
While giraffes in Western and Central Africa are still under threat, their numbers in Namibia and its neighboring countries are actually increasing, rising from 30,000 to almost 50,000. That's largely because they are better protected here in national parks. This is Dan Vision Game Reserve located near Namibia's capital, Windhoek. Today, kids from a children's home are hoping to get their first glimpse of a real giraffe. A giraffe skull like this one is very heavy. The animals sometimes use the bony projections called ossicons in combat with other animals.
Like old wood.
Standing next to a leg bone gives the kids an interesting sense of proportion.
How tall you are?
I usually like giraffes. I love the colors, and it's also tall, like I am tall.
Very strong. So giraffe kicks are very powerful. That's how they defend themselves from predators. For example, lions, so they can kick a lion.
The children won't have an easy time spotting the animals today. Giraffes are shy. This turtle, on the other hand, wasn't too hard to catch.
Don't put your fingers next to the mouth.
It's hoped that if children learn about the animals in their region, they'll be more likely to fight to protect them in the future.
Sometimes we get a group of kids, and when they see animals, for example, a giraffe, they'll tell you it's an elephant, or they see a wild beast and they'll tell you it's a horse. And that's surprising because we have so many wildlife in the country. That's why we think there is a need in environmental education and that this program is actually making a change in these people's lives.
Giraffes prefer leaves from bushes and trees along river courses. Acacia trees are among their favorites. Biologist Lachlan McPheeters say that as a result, they don't compete with livestock for food, making conflicts with farmers rare. So far, the scientists have counted 450 giraffes here in northern Namibia, and they are doing all they can to make sure these elegant creatures survive.
Wow, what beautiful creatures and what an amazing planet we have, certainly one worth protecting. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. Sadly, it's once again time to say goodbye from Ogun State, Nigeria. See you next week.
If you want to tell us your own ideas or simply find out more, do send us an email or follow us on all our social media platforms. There you'll find plenty of more stories and information. So it is a goodbye from me here in Kampala, Uganda. Do have yourselves a wonderful week ahead.